Welcome, everyone. Welcome to CAR's Property Rights Luncheon. I'm Matthias John, Vice Chair of the Public Affairs Committee. Each year, the Public Affairs Committee selects a topic that we believe realtors want to know more about. This year's topic is solar energy. By the way, CAR will soon be in the process of seeking volunteers for the committees. If you find this topic of interest, we would love to have you join the 2026 Public Affairs Committee. Today's moderator for this event is the staff liaison, Neil Williamson. Neil is in his year serving as president of the Free Enterprise Forum and staff liaison to CAR's Public Affairs Committee. Personally, I don't know anyone who knows more about local government action than Neil. And without further ado, please welcome our moderator, Neil Williamson.
Thank you. I have to really thank the Public Affairs Committee because every year they come up with a topic and I get to research and learn and go down the road and find experts. And I will say that even in the last couple of days, I've learned new things and you'll be hearing about it today. It is something that the Public Affairs Committee takes very seriously. We've had sessions on federal taxation, conservation easements. We did a session on the UVA's affordable housing last year. All of these sessions are made better because of member involvement. There was a time where we had one topic and I went down a road, and in February I presented my idea on how we were going to do this. And they said, Neil, that's a great idea, but that's not what we meant. I had to rework everything. And in the end, it was a better event because of member involvement. Might not have said that night, but we're really lucky to have three experts here in different aspects of solar energy. I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, but we're going to go through some questions. If you have a question, there are cards behind our technical director, Lauren Graff's head there, and pens. And you can just come up, write down your question, and she'll get it to me. We have more questions than we have time. I promise you'll be out of here at 1 o'clock because I know people have appointments and business, because, business would be great if it weren't for all these clients. But I've got Derek Acosta from Tiger Solar. Derek, you want to introduce yourself and a little bit about Tiger Solar?
Sure, thank you. Yes, my name is Derek Acosta. I am the sales director at Tiger Solar. I'm actually 70 days new to Virginia. You all live and work in a very beautiful place. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been doing solar for about a decade, and I was brought here by our president, Ron Heiser, to make sure we bring the same care to our customers that we did in Louisiana. If you can't take care of the customer, you can't take care of business. So thank you. And Tiger is a wonderful place. They take care of their employees and their customers to a whole new level. They have brought the solar division along with their fuel, marketplace, and car wash. And it's just as strong and getting stronger. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. Next up is Chris Meyer. You may remember Chris from a previous iteration of Chris, or one of his many iterations currently he's serving. But Chris is here with East Point Energy, and he's going to explain who CVREA is.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and opportunity to be here. And looking forward to hard questions. I am a senior project developer, which means I got some gray hair. And my job at East Point Energy is to find land and to get permits, and then help get the projects through the permitting processes in what we call the ministerial phase also, okay? I work across Virginia. East Point Energy is focused on actually not solar, but what we call battery energy storage and utility scale, okay? So we're doing projects that basically connect to the transmission grid or the distribution grid. So much larger projects, these are not going to be like a Tesla Powerwall in your garage, all right? Or even like a backup power system for the hospital or something like that. That's something that Tiger Solar guys next door will do for you, okay? East Point Energy is owned by a very large multinational company called Equinor, and is part of a robust clean energy sector here in Charlottesville. That leads me to the Charlottesville Renewable Energy Alliance, or CVIL RIA. I'm the board chair for that. Again, that represents a lot of the utility scale developers like East Point Energy, but also some other what we call the retail, commercial, and industrial facing companies like Tiger Solar. We have a great industry here. It's growing. You probably serve a lot of their employees. We're hopefully continue to grow, maybe not as fast as we used to, but a lot of folks moving here to work in the industry that are buying houses and land also. Okay, thanks.
And our last panelist today is dear friend and chair of the Free Enterprise Forum this year. Be nice to him. Paul Haney. Paul is also a solar user. So I want to ask Paul to explain how he uses solar power, in addition to a little bit on his background and why we might have chosen him to be on this panel.
I was still wondering that question as well. Thanks for having me. I was inquiring to Neil what hat I should be wearing today. I am, my background is as a forester. I have a forestry consulting company here in Charlottesville.
Bring the mic up.
Sorry. I have been with Albemarle County Farm Bureau for a decade or more. My picture up there suggests that. Been in many different roles in that as well, serving also on the state Virginia Farm Bureau, forestry committee there. Solar, we're finding it to be an additional energy source in some of our agricultural adventures where we can be powering different equipment, keeping things up rather than having it plugged into normal usage there. So, and I have a lot of questions. I feel like I should be there with you and some of the questions that I hope you will present as well. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Paul. The well, that's what's a typical. How much is a typical installation, and how much should a homeowner budget for annual maintenance?
All very good questions and common questions. So I will tell you, I'll start with common maintenance. Most companies have plans in place for you to have maintenance. They also have warranties in place, workmanship warranties, manufacturer warranties, and things in place. But there's always a fine print to those. So make sure that you read all of those, correct? Okay. Not everybody's they can say they have a 10, 15, 20, 25-year manufacturer warranty, but then they might have some fine print. So what we like to have at Tiger is a maintenance plan. And that could, run you anywhere from 50 to 100 bucks a year, depending on, and we'll be there to maintenance your system at all times. Now, again, we're not the only solar company around, so I am a little biased, but there are others that do the same work. Now, the maintenance part for yourself is you can clean the panels once to twice a year yourself, or you can have someone come out and clean them. It depends on your situation and what you have going on in your home. I advise that you clean them at least twice a year, because a lot of times you'll have these fast talking sales reps like myself come on out there and say, oh, well, the rain washes it all off. That's not true. Okay, it does have some buildup over time, and you do need to keep them nice and clean so they can produce correctly for you. That was a long answer. What was the first question?
It was a good dodge. Is it cost effective?
Cost effective. Sorry about that. So what we like to say is it's a reallocation of funds. You are going to spend this money whether you like it or not. You need electricity. So why not put it towards something that is going to be an investment for yourself? And the commercial runs anywhere from $1.90 to about $2.50 a watt, depending on the situation. And residential can range from $2.35 to $4 per watt, depending on if you're getting battery storages or other equipment as add-ons. So please keep that in mind. It all depends on your situation and what you would like to back up and have ready to go. Your average system cost is around $30,000, depending on the size of your utility bill. Because like I said, we would like to replace that with the same money that you're putting on your electric bill, right? I mean, on your solar. So it's a reallocation of funds. Numbers don't work for everyone, okay? So there is a math to it. And as much as we love to say everyone can go solar, we're also built with integrity. And we know that some people, it doesn't work for you, okay? And that's why the programs and the right people in your home to come tell you and educate you about this.
Do tax credits enter into that?
Tax credits are a big issue nowadays, with our BBB, our big beautiful bill. As of December 31st, 2025, residential solar will not have a 30% tax credit. And I will get ahead of this for you all. October 1st is the cutoff date for most companies taking on contracts to guarantee you'll be installed by December 31st, 2025. Please make sure that you are aware of those timeframes. It's all off of permitting and inspections, things like, so we don't always have full control. So that's why we gave ourselves that cushion to make sure each and every customer was taken care of. Commercial side, that goes until 2027. And then also if you do a lease or a PPA, I believe there are some credits available for residential there, after the first of next year.
Great. Chris, in your work, could you define utility scale? And for these realtors, what is the land requirement for a utility scale site? And describe an ideal site.
So, there's a lot of different things happening from battery project size to solar size. And we have what we call a utility basically means, it's called front of the meter. So we are basically connecting directly again to the distribution grid or the transmission grid and selling power directly to there. It is not being used on site and on the meter related to the house or the commercial building that's on that parcel of land, okay? So you're basically having an account directly with the utility company, okay? And we're called generation. So that's then electrons that are being put on the grid that all of us are using again to power our homes and our businesses and our daily lives, okay? We're looking for usually land, and not all land works. I think there's this misconception that we're going to put solar everywhere and battery storage everywhere, and that is very much not the case. We're looking for ideally buildable area, which is flat land that's already clear. Probably a lot of things that your homeowners or your other clients are looking forward to. You don't have wetlands or creeks. You don't have that threatened endangered species on it. Importantly, you need to be adjacent to or nearby existing electrical infrastructure. So the gold mine, if you have a client that has got an electrical substation, either on their property or next to their property, that is the ideal parcel for a utility scale type of project. And it can be as small as, again, depending on the substation, some of the big ones, those are even bigger for the better projects. The small ones are fine too, and we call it distribution size project. It could be for a battery project as small as an acre. We can work with that. You could get a lot of money, especially if it's next to a good substation. Most utility scale, called smaller community solar projects, they're going to need at least 10 buildable acres. So again, at least probably 10 acres that are nice and flat and already clear. And you're going to go up to like 50 acres, would be what we call kind of a community scale. Solar developers for utility scale projects will often, though, and they're trying to get, again, like a lot of different things, you want scale, you want to patch together different sets of parcels together and work with different landowners. Okay, that gets complicated, obviously, but the more scale, the better the economics look, and they're probably willing to pay more landowners than a little bit more money to try to get the deal done. Okay, and then here we're looking for even bigger parcels of land, so either hundreds to thousands of acres being put together. Okay, now, again, if you don't have a substation, that's fine. What we're then looking for is basically a transmission line. So this is where you have a landowner who's Not happy that that transmission line is cutting through the property, and 40 years ago it got put through, and wasn't there, they didn't really say no. That transmission line now has value beyond that initial easement payment that they got. You're gonna need larger scale amounts of land, though. If you have a transmission line, you're looking at least 50, 70 acres, you might say, most likely for either a battery project or a smaller solar project. Because then we have to build our own substations and need a separate side land for that, okay? So, again, not all land is equal. Most importantly is you definitely need electrical infrastructure, so a substation or a transmission line. It can be smaller amounts, but it also can be much larger, okay? There's not a ton. Things have already been picked over in Albemarle, I can tell you that. There's maybe one more site, actually, for industrial scale solar, they're pretty much already been secured and or have already been permitted. Smaller stuff, 40, 50 acre parcels, people are looking for. I'll just add real quick, sorry. County just approved a new solar ordinance, which is great for our CNI, our commercial and industrial folks, because you don't have to like go through a bunch of bureaucracy. They basically buy right it. So it should facilitate a lot of commercial stuff. For smaller solar or industrial projects, I wouldn't say or utility scale, a 20-acre size parcel can now also go through by right. So if you have clients who 21 acres, I think technically it is, that's the subdivision amount, and you have infrastructure nearby, that parcel of land, or you can subdivide it into 21 acres, is going to be worth a lot more money because you don't have to go through a discretionary permitting process and get a CUP or SCP, or a special use permit or conditional use permit. Sorry, that was a lot, but there's a fair amount of nuance in there, but wanted to get everybody some basic detail.
Oh, that's very helpful. The other question that I wouldn't have known to ask until last night, I was at a presentation. Do you buy or lease that land?
All utility scale folks will buy or lease. So we can work with the landowners. If folks we know don't want to sell their land, other folks are ready to move down to Florida or some other place, we can facilitate all of that. The lease is going to be, though, at a minimum for 30 years. Expensive projects, you have to amortize them out. And the landowner, or again, the developer is going to want to be able to lock down that land for a certain amount of time. A lot of those also will add on 2 5-year extensions, and for a battery scale, we're looking for 35 years plus 10 more years. There's some room for negotiation on that. The other important part about this, and this is what makes it hard for realtors, and we can talk about how you can maybe make it work for you and your clients, is that we need option periods. So we can't just buy the property or lease the property right away, because usually, again, we have to go get a permit. We also have to go study the project with the utility to make sure we're not blowing up the transformers. That requires at a minimum 3 years projects, and so you're doing a deal with somebody that basically has to lock in a price 3 years from now, either for your lease or your purchase. Or for much larger projects, again, let's think 50 acres plus, you're going to need 5 years. Is the amount of time the developer is going to need, one, usually to get the permit, and then again, study the project, and then make an investment decision. You will get paid between now and then, and you continue to use your land business as usual, but that's the kind of unfortunate downside of the deals with the utility scale folks, is that option period is 3 to 5 years.
So if you ever wonder about me saying regulatory costs, this would be an example of regulatory costs. Paul, I didn't hear too much about your incredibly large solar operation out at your place. Can you, as it was a not installed, but a DIY, I think is the way you say it these days, project, can you tell us a little bit about what solar you have on site and what you actually use that small capacity for?
Pretty simple. You put small panels up. I'm using it to maintain batteries, maintain equipment while it's not being used. So it's a very simple project. The cost is very low, and it allows me to keep equipment in places that otherwise I wouldn't be able to. So it's really an efficient alternative that keeps me from having to move equipment around on the different farms that we're working on. So
it's on your shop
Yeah, it's on top of I have a little sawmill as well, and it's, I put solar panels up on the top to help keep the equipment maintained there that I use around that, little sawmill, so it's very efficient.
Now moving to the Farm Bureau hat, um, I'm really fascinated by the idea of livestock and solar working together. Can any livestock really successfully coexist in your experience with utility scale solar?
There is some success, I think there is some failure. The initial attempts, I think, have been to run sheep underneath the panels, and there are situations where I think that's working wonderfully in the upper valley. I think there's places in lower valley where it's been a complete failure, and it sounds like to me there's been some probably communication breakdown between the landowner when they entered into the agreement and the condition of the site, which once the panels were there and the site was altered, it wasn't suitable for animals. I recently heard in Pennsylvania they're doing some preliminary work trying to have cattle in there with the panels, and don't know much about that, but I could see where the solar folks might find that to be a bit challenging, because cattle like to push and rub. Leave your vehicle parked in the field with them, and it'll be potentially in parts and pieces when you get back. So I see challenges there, but again, it's, beefing it up. I think, Neil, we were talking at the land, they've come up with a way to stabilize the panels without having to puncture the bladders that are being used at the landfill. So I think we're constantly evolving as to what may or may not be capable. I think keeping the panels high enough that you can keep appropriate vegetation underneath has the potential to be a problem. But then I think you're going to have to come back thinking about the fertilization that's going to be required to keep it growing, if we've got the sunlight that would be necessary for that as well, and to control the erosion potential there as well.
Great. Chris, same question to you with regard to livestock and commercial solar. Do you have any, or actually the utility scale projects?
Yeah, I think Paul hit on some of the challenges there. Once they're first established, you definitely need to get, again, you've had a lot of construction on the site. You need to get the grass reestablished, but I think it's seen as a win-win basically between the industry and the farmers, because there's two things, but one, there's a lot of maintenance costs with just mowing grass. So if we could, again, basically either lease it to them for free or pay these farmers to mow the grass through the sheep, basically, it's kind of a win-win, in order to kind of reduce your mowing costs there. It's not perfect for all the different sites too. I don't want to say that, because there is, again, different steeps or hills, so you have to work with the farmer, I think, the sheep herder, to get it right. There has been some I won't say, sorry, beekeeping too is kind of a thing that's worked well. I wouldn't call that necessarily I don't want to call it industrial scale farming, but the farming aspects that are associated with some of these projects too. The other piece of this is usually the utility scale developer is working with the farmer or the landowner to say, which part of your property makes most sense. You're not going to take your most valuable piece of farm land and put a utility scale solar on it, right? Because that's making more money than you're probably going to get from the utility scale lease payment, right? So there's a conversation always with the farmer, because the farmer usually knows best what's going on with their land. And like, all right, here's a piece of the degraded land that's not giving me much. Let's put the solar over here, okay? And then you get to continue to actually have some income coming in, facilitating and helping the farmer, which is not an easy business, continue to keep that land, other parts of the land under the farm. So it's basically an income diversification strategy for them. Other farmers can come in, again, if maybe this is not a sheep farmer, but again, can come in and do some sheep on it too, grazing also. So I want to just bring that part of it up.
Go ahead, Paul.
Up on that, here in Albemarle, sheep is not a big commodity. We're primarily cow-calf. So I'd be real excited to see if what's happening in Pennsylvania would be appropriate here. One of the other things that I've run into in a different hat with my forestry hat, when we've had fires around the solar panels, I think the Virginia Department of Forestry's position is they will not put people inside of that. So I think even you saying no, that's not their position? Oh, yeah. I think that even more encourages, the idea that if we could have something that would work agriculturally so that, we keep that land in production and can have the benefit of the solar as well. So there are all obstacles that have to be addressed and have to be negotiated on the front end so that it's successful for everybody involved.
Great. Derek, back to the commercial homeowner. Got a bunch of acronyms on this sheet. Number one, the big question that I have, and really I think these folks might have a better answer than you do, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Does solar increase my property value?
That's actually, that works. That's actually one of my favorite questions I run into because there's not much to this, and especially for you realtors, that's one of your biggest questions. Is it gonna add value to my home? So they had this company that came out, and I used them in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I don't know if you want to take this down. It's called Pearl Certificate.
Yeah, we've used Pearl here.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, I was unaware, if you did or didn't, but, they are wonderful. They will send someone out to evaluate your home with the, now, you spent $30,000 on your solar, that doesn't mean you get $30,000 in equity on your house, okay? Let's clear that up. But they will do a rating on your home, on the energy level, and get that to your appraiser, okay? And I have seen up to $18,000 given back to the homeowner in equity for our efficient home. Now, this was a 65 panel system, that's a big system in our eyes, okay? Range from 18 to 26, sometimes 32 on the bigger multifamily homes. I definitely would say go with Pearl. Pearl is the #1 leader in that, and that is the best way to get value to property. Other than that, I've not heard of or seen any successful once finished with equity in the home. Pearl's the only one that's got it done for me in my experience.
Great. Now, this may be, since you're 60 days in, it may be an unfair question, but I'll ask it anyway because I wrote it. Are you aware of restrictions, whether it's city council, board of supervisors, HOA, ARB, regarding rooftop solar?
Some, but it's usually with the aesthetics of the solar panels. They can't be in a certain spot. They can't be seen in a certain area. That is as far as I go with that. I would love to have more information, but I am new to this area. I can tell you there was some back where I'm from that was mainly to the aesthetics. 90% of the time, it was always, well, these aren't where we would like, or these are going to be seen from the street.
Chris?
Yes, I'm gonna jump on that because I actually did a lot of legal work on this in my previous role because there's no local ordinances in the city or the county. And again, there was very commercial along the entrance corridor, but because we changed the ordinance, that changed. So for commercial, HOAs in the past had some stuff in their bylaws where they can restrict it. It's very limited. I actually paid for a bunch of lawyers to go try to address this issue and ensure that their property rights can be respected and that residents can put solar on their roofs. There's some steps you have to take that the HOA can make you jump through, and basically do a comparison on. I don't want to see them on the front of the house. You have to put them on the back. If that's the best facing roof, you have to pay a little bit of money to have that done. And I can pass that information on to you all. It's online also, but in the state of Virginia, you're limited. The HOA is very limited on how they can restrict.
Well, about a year ago, I want to say, may have been a little bit more, there was a church that wanted to put up solar panels in Charlottesville. You're laughing, you're familiar with it. You may be better to, I'm going from memory, but the Board of Architectural Review read their rules and decided against allowing it, appealed it to City Council, and City Council allowed it, which is the way the system is supposed to work. Did I remember that order of events correctly? Amazing. Every now and again, a blind pig finds an acorn. All right, Paul, earlier this week, the Washington Post ran a story about balcony solar for renters. You and I traded emails about this. Can you speak to balcony solar, what it is? Why is Germany so far ahead of us? And where is it in America?
I will speak to it, but I suspect there's other here that are more knowledgeable than I. No, we did go back and forth, and I thought it was a really interesting concept to where if you're a renter, you go into your apartment or townhouse, and you can literally hang your solar panel off of the balcony. And in Germany, they have the electrical system set up such that it operates and it doesn't cause any problems. Here in the States, and you guys can clarify better than I think we still have some issues meeting the safety and security that it needs to not blow your house up or blow your neighbor's house up or your
Details.
utility man. So I think those are the limitations we have here. In a presentation that Neil and I were at last night, I think the consensus is that there's a tremendous opportunity for that to ultimately for the demand on the grid with panels like that or rooftops or otherwise, so that when you get into your high peak demands, there's more out there that can be utilized while the solar panels are operational too. So I think the U.S. is trying to catch up to what they've been doing in Germany and figure out how to get that electrical side to not blow our houses up.
Yeah, the neat part about it to me in Germany, you literally, it's like hanging your beach towel out like you're not supposed to on the balcony. You then plug it into the wall and the power just goes. It's mitigated because it's limited the amount of power it can generate. Also, the system's been built to allow that. The one application, again, this is me being nerdy researching this stuff. I love this for renters, but there was one application that's pending right now that is a carport with solar panels above it. And it's a separate circuit so that you don't have the circuit burn up, which is the big concern. And it's a 220 circuit like a dryer circuit. It has to be real simple for me to understand. Anyway, you can just put it up, plug it in, and it goes out to it feeds it, and it's under review. Now, any of these things have to be approved by Underwriters Laboratory, and none of them have been yet. But I thought it was kind of neat when I read about it in the Post Monday. And, you know, this is the kind of stuff that this kind of lunch opens up to my world, because I certainly didn't know. Let me get back and switch over here to Chris and ask you, are utility scale projects reversible? And do localities require bonds to make certain that they get reversed if they need to?
Yeah, so the majority of your ordinances now, municipalities that will govern the permits that utility scale projects have to receive will require some kind of decommissioning plan and a assurance, whether it be a bond, a company guarantee, or something else. Okay, so they want to know first that, all right, what happens at the end of 30 years, 35 years? What are you going to do with all these panels? What are you going to do with all these batteries? And how are you going to return? What's the cost going to be to return basically your site to its previous use? In a lot of cases, let's say a farm. All right. And so they have to do all those calculations, and usually it's a third-party engineer has to basically validate that are legit. These calculations are legit, and then you have to go out and get, again, the relevant type of security, either a credit or an assurance or a bond. If owners, they need to make sure that's also in your agreement also. So it's not just the municipality that's requiring it, but it should also be in the contract with the between the landowner and the company, if it's going to be a lease. Okay. There are recycling markets for these things, especially the batteries now, but there are very valid concerns. What will most likely happen though is the investment for the substations and other equipment to interconnect to that transmission lines. It's most likely, and again, as long as we're continuing to use electricity, which could change in 30, 35 years, but if we're still using electricity in 35 years, there's going to be a high likelihood that you're going to want to continue the project and they'll renegotiate a deal. Okay, so I'll just say that too. However, you could have a stranded asset, as they say, and you do need to make sure that the agreements, especially with your landowners, do include the protocols or provisions in the agreement to, again, protect the landowner in the future.
The question for you, how much power does, say, a typical utility scale project generate?
Yeah, so you'll hear megawatts, gigawatts, kilowatts, terawatts all tossed around. And basically a megawatt, which is usually kind of what we're dealing with utility scales, is the equivalent of powering about 500 average residence homes here in Virginia. It's kind of a rule of thumb. Some places it's 250. Obviously, there's differences between if it's a fossil fuel natural gas furnace in the house or it's like a heat pump, etc. Right? So we're using a megawatt equals 500 residences. Okay. Your community solar size projects, which let's say are 50 acres in size, that's a 5 megawatt size project. Okay. Maxed out there. So you're getting about 2,500 homes being powered by that. Okay. Your utility scale solar stuff is getting into hundreds of megawatts there again, and then you're getting into hundreds of acres and thousands of acres too. Okay. But that's kind of again how we kind of measure these types of things.
And how would you characterize Virginia's regulatory environment right now, including public concerns or overall concerns about utility scale solar?
Okay. We are regulated at a lot of different levels. You heard me talking about just Albemarle County solar ordinance here. Again, those are the local hoops we have to get just to get the permission to do that use on the site or the parcel when your client's land. Okay. So if I want to go to work on Paul's farm, I first have to get a deal done with him, and then I still have to go, if it's again more than 21 acres, I have to go through a discretionary permitting process with the county. That's pretty much the same throughout all of the state, and almost all jurisdictions and municipalities now have a ordinance associated with that. Okay. You have some jurisdictions that are friendlier. Albemarle, we're pretty friendly here, even though again, we're not that many utility scale projects we're going to do. Louisa, their ordinance basically makes it uneconomical to do it because they don't want any more projects. So if you have at the state level, there is the state again basically pushes the decisions down to the jurisdictions. There's been talk because there's been a lot of projects being rejected in some counties for whatever reason. I think there's a lot of misinformation about that out there, but to have a state siting board, and they've done this in Michigan, some other states where there was the feeling that we need power, but no one's willing to host these projects, and that we need to basically take the decision-making away from the localities because they're not approving them, even though there's good tax revenue in for them and other benefits, and then take it up and make it basically a state-level decision because we all need power, but no one wants it in their backyard issue, okay? So the state is actually pretty good. There's also state-level regulation that's called the Virginia Clean Economy Act, which is trying to make our electricity sector zero net greenhouse gas emissions by 2045. So there's been calls for Dominion and APCO and their other power providers basically to find ways to get more of their own projects or buy project developers so that we have, I think it's 5 gigawatts. So basically 5,000 or 50,000 megawatts worth of projects or hundreds of solar projects throughout the state in order to keep power on the grid. Now there's going to be a big, I'm sorry, I'm going on, but there's going to be a big kind of kumbaya maybe in this next General Assembly because we have all the data centers you hear about. And what are they doing? Are they reducing demand for power or increasing it? Increasing. So that's completely different. That's why your electricity rates, unless we start building more projects and getting more generation, doesn't have to be necessarily all solar, but your electricity rates are gonna go through the roof because the data centers are increasing the demand so much, and economics 101, everybody, right? More demand, not a lot of supply. This is why I would highly suggest looking at residential or commercial solar, and you're fixing your rate now. And so when those rates are 50% higher in 10 years from now, you're still paying the rate that was right now. That's what I did 10 years ago. So all that to say, Neil, sorry. Yeah, challenging environment. We're good here in Albemarle. The neighboring adjacent is not so great. At a state level, we're pretty good. You're probably going to see some changes though next year.
Paul, you want to chime in on that?
I did want to jump in. I told you at the beginning, I should probably sitting with you all because I've got lots of questions, but backing up to something that Chris had said before, with my Farm Bureau hat on, we really don't want to see any of our agricultural land go to solar panels. Now, as a landowner advocate, I'm working on a number of projects to where taking a portion and allocating it for solar is strategic. I got one property that it's going to make, it's a self-sustaining entity with that additional income from that. Now, with that said, the next question I had, and Chris may have it, or Neil may have it, or maybe I should have it, or you have it. If I take that 30 acres on a 500-acre farm over in the corner and we put panels on it, I'm in land use taxation. What does that do to my taxation on that portion of land now that is no longer in agricultural or forestry production?
So that part gets subdivided off, and that part of the land definitely loses its last in taxation, which is a great benefit, but the landowner is not responsible for that difference. So part of the deal with the utility company is always going to pay that difference, and this is why all our jurisdictions want the projects, because and don't send kids to school. So you can help keep your real estate property taxes. Charlotte County is a great example of all that. I will say real quick too, I think a lot of the utility companies are very concerned about the loss of agricultural land. Like I said, these projects can't go everywhere. And I think we're losing about 100,000 acres of land each year of agricultural land, but 90% of that is to real estate development and other development. It is not to solar farms. So let's be very clear here. We're talking about maybe 3% of the agricultural land and forestry land being lost to solar or energy, and the other 95% of it being lost to residential development, which is all good for you all, right? But it is not, we're not going to lose farmers and farming land because of the solar, all right?
It understood go ahead, Paul.
I was not suggesting that it was a major issue, but more that the two can work together if it takes a little bit of planning. But I do think it's important that people understand what the tax ramifications can or cannot be, and that for you and your people you're representing, it seems to me that could be very useful.
Well, that ties into my next question for Derek, that, again, 60-day Virginia resident. Poor question, but I'm going to ask it. When you're looking at, you've put solar on, maybe you've done it 5 years beforehand, and then you sell. Does it complicate the building ownership or transaction or real estate transfer at all, having the solar on there? And what happens to the contract that I signed in good faith that was going to be, a 10-year maintenance agreement? Can that convert? What happens there?
Sure. It's a great question. I have the answers to that, even though I'm from New Orleans. It's universal there. So if you decide, let's go down the cash for, if you decide to pay cash for your system and you have this system for 5 years and you decide to sell your home, the only thing that's happening, the homeowner is coming in and they are taking over your great solar system. Okay. You do not get anything for it unless you were to go to Pearl and get some equity into your home for the high efficiency. The tricky part becomes when you finance this project. Okay. Oh, sorry. When you finance this project is when it gets a little tricky. Now, depending on who you use, some of them have a one transfer to the new homeowner allowed, which is a very simple process of just getting the information and, of course, the right files and documents from the close that they own the house. So they also have finance companies that do not do this, and that is the ones that give us our biggest issue, because you now have to fully pay off your system in full, sell your home, hopefully with Pearl, to get some equity back to put back on your, to help you with your loss on your loan. So please keep that in mind, that know who's coming to your house to explain this to you, and know that they are a trusted company and that they have a background in this. Just a Chuck truck shows up, that is not going to be your ideal situation for such a sticky situation like this. So please keep in mind that all finance companies.
Derek, I just want to touch on that real quick. I have a solar system in my own house. I have production that shows I'm producing 10,000 kilowatt hours a year. All right. Multiply that by 14 cents or whatever the price of power is right now. So I'm generating $1,400 tax-free, by the way, also a year. That again is going against that. I can show that. Do I really have to have Pearl to be able to make the argument to show that I have a basically income generating asset? It's just like an apartment, like the carriage house apartment, right? I mean, there's value there, right?
For clarification, you do not. For it to make sense, you do not. For it to be perfectly all legal on paper, and that's all track and they can be found, that would be the reasoning behind it.
All right, I've got some audience questions, and as usual, the audience is smarter than I am. So I think I'm gonna put this one to Chris, since I don't know what it is. Are solar shares that some companies have, CVIC, for instance, worth having?
Yeah, so I think it's basically kind of a solar share is not necessarily saving you money. Usually, if I understand things correctly, you're paying for usually a premium on top of your normal electric rate. So maybe again, it's 15 cents a kilowatt hour. You're going to pay an extra 2 cents a kilowatt hour for that solar share, so that you can say your power came from a solar project. It could be wherever. All right. So it's kind of almost an accounting gimmick. You're not necessarily buying directly into, I think, a project where you would have an equity stake, let's say, in that project that is generating, and you're getting a certain percentage of the electricity from there, and that's coming on your credit. A community solar project with a subscription to a community solar project is a little bit different. And I'm sorry, there's some nuance here, but that would be more likely, again, you're then subscribing directly to that project and paying a price directly from that. And we do have here in Virginia. So a little difference between basically getting kind of like a certificate and paying a little extra premium to, again, get that solar certificate on top of your normal rate versus directly subscribing to a community solar project.
Great. Derek, what guidance does Tiger Solar give to new owners who are installing roof panels as far as their roof integrity and future roof maintenance?
Oh, does it say who asked that question? No. No. Well, I just wanted to address you personally, so I apologize, but
Hold the mic closer.
yes, I will explain this in, I guess, two different ways. If you know you have a new construction home, you have your panels installed, and let's say something happens to your roof. You have to get a roof completely changed out. We will come and do what R&R, what is called a remove and replace. And it is usually around 25 to 50 bucks a panel, if I'm not mistaken, to take off, if you need to take off 4, if we need to take it all off and put it back on for you to receive a new roof. If you have an older roof, a good educated sales rep will come out there and say, hey, you might want to consider changing your roof before going solar, and they should give you that heads up. We also have site visiting professionals on hand. So if we look at the pictures and we're like, I'm not sure if that roof is great enough for this system or and structurally sound for this system, we will send a professional out there to get a exact to let you know if you need to change it or not. So
Derek, more specific questions. Got 3. Number one, can you say how many battery a standard residence needs for storage? And can you combine wind and solar? And can you combine fuel cell and solar?
I will, leave the third one to Chris. You'll have to take fuel cells and solar. I apologize. But the first question that you asked me was, uh, yeah, hey, Paul,
How many batteries?
how many batteries? So if this is a big misconception, because if you go on Tesla's website or these batteries, they're like, one battery can back up your whole entire home, and they call it whole home backup. The whole home is a term. It is not the truth. It's not your entire home. Okay. If you want to run your AC unit and some critical loads that you want when the power is out, we advise 2 batteries at Tiger Solar. One specifically for your AC unit, which takes a certain amount of power to kick on. You need more than enough amperage than one battery can give you to do that. If you're looking to cover 6 to 8 critical circuits, you just want some lights and fans, you don't want to lose the food in your fridge, one battery suffices. And it has no issues with anything there. But yes, you would need 2 batteries to run your entire home, sometimes 3 or 4, depending on what size your AC units are, or what loads you would like backed up.
And how about combining wind and solar?
Wind and solar, I might have to kick it to the left here, again, but I have no experience in wind, and I apologize. I have seen some done maybe in Kansas on a bigger playing field than residential or commercial, but it's something that I wouldn't be feel good about talking.
Chris, how about you? Wind and solar and fuel cell and solar. Can those things can be combined in energy production easily? You need to turn on your mic, and it's it is, we're talking about home use, but make sure your mic is on.
Sorry, so home use, how you have a line that's bringing power into your home, right? And you have a meter there, and you have a control panel that in the different circuits, right, that go out to your refrigerator, and everything else, your AC unit, your lights, etc. There are panels out there, and one we had here locally is called Lumen, ABB, so you might have heard of them. Basically, and there's other types of solutions there that can help kind of manage the power that's coming in and out. And so what we've seen is, for example, and you could have a small little windmill. I mean, I think those are out there. They're not that popular, but we've seen them that would generate power, and it could be sent into your home along with the solar panels, along with the line that's bringing the power from Dominion or whatever in your home too. And all that can get combined, and through basically some of these smart controls and the appropriate inverters and other kind of, let's say, hard equipment there, they can manage that power coming in, either from Dominion and then distribute it out to all the uses you have. You can also, I won't say necessarily a fuel cell, but in the future, we'll probably see your electric vehicle, which has got a big 50, 60 kilowatt hour value. So basically equivalent of 5 or 6 Tesla Powerwalls. That can also then be connected in. And again, this Lumen panel can help you do all that, and it will manage that electricity coming and going for you. Okay, you could even take that solar that's coming on your roof, and instead of sending it out to the grid, it could send it into your car. Again, depending on time of use and some other things. So now wind, again, would be kind of part of all that. So I think the question is yes, there's hardware and software out there basically that can now manage either, power coming into your home along with power being produced on your home, whether it be coming from a solar and or a wind turbine, or again, the EV battery that you're putting back on. I'm looking at my friends here. Yeah, okay. And right, it's all load management, and you're having more sophisticated systems that can manage.
Paul, question for you on the massive Paul Haney energy grid. Do you have a generator on your shop in case you use, because I'm sure when you start up that power saw, it probably pulls a pretty good amount of power.
Yes, I have generators scattered about everywhere. My wife comments that there may be too many of them, and some of them I can't find right now. But as far as, the sawmill has its own own power source, so I had this back and forth to Sheets, to keep that operational. But no, the solar panels other than that are just more of a maintenance of all the equipment, so.
Understood. Now, last question for each of you, is crystal ball time. Can you speak to future products? And this is twofold when you're talking about utility scale. What's going to happen? Are we going to have smaller panels creating more energy? And on the home side, we're hearing murmurings about solar roofing shingles. Is that a reality? Is it going to happen? Is it happening now? What can you tell us?
Sure. So roof shingles, mainly I think there's two major players, which is Tesla and GAF. And issue with those at the moment is the cost. If if your home's a $300,000 home, normal roof, that roof could be over $1 million. I know it's like, wow, yeah, right. And I've seen some prices that would scare anyone in this room. And it's not there yet. The technology is not there yet. For the roof shingles, in my opinion.
Is it coming?
It is? Okay, well, we have a question. Okay.
So with the Tesla roofing, I can give you an idea. 2 years ago, we installed a home in Louisiana. It was a 2,600 square foot home. The roof was $343,000. So just for scale, just wanted to share that with you.
So yes, down the line, they're supposed to be making some smaller, more efficient, less cost product. We don't know anything about it yet, not anything at all. At least through my research and my table, I haven't learned anything more about the cost coming down either from Tesla or GM. I think it was a great plan. I think they rolled it out. I think they got a handful of customers, and I think it stopped right after that. They realized that the cost was not there. It was double, triple, sometimes quadruple the cost of your home.
Great. Chris, future of utility scale, will there be smaller panels? Will we be able to do more with less land?
Yeah, so I think my colleagues here at the solar side too. I mean, when I got my system installed on my own house, and this is a little bit different utility, but we were 250 watt, 275 watt panels, and now we're at 440, 450, 500 watt panels. And again, for utility scale, it's even higher. So in as much I don't know, the panels aren't necessarily getting physically smaller, but the amount of power that you can produce on that same amount of square footage, you might say, is exponentially going on. There's the same things happening with our batteries that we're doing too. So batteries are, I mean, in theory, giving more power for the same amount of space that they occupy. What I'll just say overall is, I think working with all your clients, whether it's their house and their own power and getting their own little system or batteries, but we're just using more and more energy in general, right? And I don't see that changing. And our utilities and the projects we're doing are catching up with all that, but we're trying to keep up with the data centers type of size of things and potentially even, again, all the electrification of your vehicles. So there's going to be an opportunity, I think, for a lot of folks to host some of that power generation and capture some of that value chain and capture more of that here rather than have our power produced far away and then piped in from the transmission lines. Okay, and so great opportunity for folks to, again, put it on their roofs and generate yourself and hedge your costs, you might say a little bit. But also, if you have extra land, it could be as small as an acre, you can make, and utility companies like ours will pay you a very high premium to the value of that land if you can have some patience to host some of this generation, and we'll get a lot more of it, and we're going to see a lot more of it more distributed, as they say, also.
Great.
Okay?
Great. I want to be mindful of everybody's time, and I'd like to ask you to thank our panelists for being here today. Thank you all and have a good afternoon.